Evening, everyone. We'll just wait another minute just to let some people, if they're delayed, join in before we formally commence. Okay, we'll make a start now. Thanks very much, everyone, for joining us for this information session on the Northern Ireland Community Infrastructure Fund. This session will be recorded this evening, but what we'll be recording is the delivery of the information session, and it'll end just before the Q&A session. It's just so it's available for people who have been unable to attend one of the information sessions. This is the last information session. We've done a number over the last fortnight, including in Belfast, Derry, Enniskillen, Newry and Larne, as well as another one earlier today. The session will probably last just close to an hour. So I will now commence. So my name is Christo McConnell and I'm from the Department for Communities. And the Northern Ireland Community Infrastructure Fund is a new pilot fund created by the department. The department has policy and strategic responsibility for the fund, and we're pleased to have partnered with Cooperation Ireland to administer the end-to-end delivery of the fund, and you will hear from my colleagues in Cooperation Ireland later in the presentation. Some housekeeping before we begin. So the slides from today's session will be available on the Cooperation Ireland website, as well as a recording of this session. During tonight's information session, there will be an opportunity for questions and answers at the end. So during the presentation, I would ask you that if you have a question, not to raise your hand, but you will see at the very top of your screen a Q&A section. So if there's a question that comes to you on a particular topic or a particular slide, then feel free to enter that into the Q&A section, not into the chat section, but the Q&A section, which has two wee bubbles and Q&A below it. And then we will come to those towards the end of the session. Okay, and so the agenda for tonight's information session is to provide you with key information around the fund. It will cover an overview of the fund. It will cover eligibility, which is eligibility, organizational eligibility, building eligibility, and eligibility around works. We will talk you through the application process. So the application process for this fund is only online, and we will also provide details around how to register for the online portal, key dates, particularly around stage 1, and as I said previously, there will be a section at the end for questions and answers. So to give a bit of an overview of the fund, so the Northern Ireland Community Infrastructure Fund is an investment in the everyday spaces, so those community buildings, community spaces that sustain and strengthen our communities across Northern Ireland. And you'll probably hear me say this a couple of times. So whilst the fund is focused on community buildings, it's not a fund solely focused on bricks and mortar. It's around people and the communities. So the fund will support voluntary and community organisations to improve the internal and external fabric of their existing community buildings. So the total value of the fund is 4.32 million, which is a significant investment by the department. It's really around supporting minor capital works, whether repair or improvement, to the internal or the external fabric of existing community buildings. what I've said in the previous information sessions, so it's useful as you think about your application or your proposal, is that for it to be broadly eligible, it has to relate to the internal or the external fabric of the building. It's a good sort of yard brush to sort of help guide you through when you're thinking about types of works. Given the name of the fund, this is a fund that is an investment in both urban and rural communities across Northern Ireland. So it's not restricted to urban or rural. It is geared to cater to both urban and rural. So it's applicable to our cities, our towns, our villages, and our rural areas as well. With an investment of 4.32 million, and a maximum grant award of up to 95% of the project costs, with a maximum grant award of 40,000. We envisage that we'll fund a minimum of 100 projects. That's just based on a simple calculation that if everyone comes in for the total grant award of 40,000, we'll be able to fund 100. But like most funds, not all projects will need the full 40. So in essence, I envisage we'll fund more than 100, but that depends on the level of funding that is asked for by organisations. In terms of the fund, so the fund actually, in terms of from its application into its actual delivery and evaluation, is spread over 3 financial years. So how I would describe is from the start of this month to the end of March is really the application process and the outcome of that process. So we opened the scheme on the 1st of October, and that was for an expression of interest, which is stage 1. The department has deliberately taken a 2-stage approach here to minimise bureaucracy for applicants, by also so that stage 1 is a very short application process, which will close on the 29th of October. And then those will be assessed, and the outcomes of those will be notified by the 19th of October 2025. And then stage 2, for successful applicants from stage 1 will be invited through to stage 2, which opens from the 19th of November, which is through to the 9th of January 2026. So that is about 8 or 9 weeks. And because stage 2 requires more details around your project, it's why we have allocated more time for that stage. So after stage 2 closes on the 9th of January, we anticipate and envisage that we will have notification of application outcomes by the 31st of March 2026, which then means that the period for delivery is from the 1st of April 2026 to the 31st of March 2027. So the delivery period is a full year. Your project may not take a full year to deliver, but what we've tried to do in the design here is when we looked at other schemes and we engaged with people, people say that in previous capital projects, there was always a very real short window for the works to be undertaken, and sometimes if it was during the winter, that negatively impacted on timescales. So to try and be fair and realistic, we've tried to allow the largest window we can. However, all works need to be completed and all spend incurred by the 31st of March 2027. So if you have been successful and you have completed your works and all the work and spend is incurred by the 31st of March 2027, then by July 2027 is when you would be asked to complete your final project report in terms of the works that was undertaken and the impact. I see a couple of people have put up their hands, and if you joined late, it was just a reminder that there will be an opportunity for Q&A at the end. So if you have a particular question at the moment and want to log it, at the top of your screen there's a Q&A section. So if you want to put your question in there, then we'll come to it once we finish the presentation. Okay, so the Minister launched the fund on the 24th of September in Pomeroy. I won't read in detail the Minister's quote there, but what I will draw out there is around So the background to this fund was that the minister recognised that our community buildings play an important role in our communities across Northern Ireland. There's also a recognition there that those community buildings um, look and are different things in different communities. So it's why when we've described what is eligible, we've said community halls, village halls, orange halls, um, some sports clubs that are open for community activities. So it is a broad category of organisations, but they all play an important role in terms of supporting their local communities. We saw that particularly during COVID and afterwards in terms of the recent storms and cost of livings. But what we in the department and the minister also realised was that some of those existing community buildings weren't fit for purpose, that they needed investment for repairs, and many of those halls needed a small level of investment to have a big impact. And in essence, that is what the purpose of this fund is. It is recognising the value and the contribution of those community buildings and community spaces, but realising that some may need investment to be viable, but also to offer the services to the communities that they support. In terms of the aim and objectives of the fund, so the fund will support voluntary community organisations to improve the internal and external fabric of their existing community buildings, with the aim of enabling community organisations to better meet the needs of their community and or to improve the range and quality of activities that can be delivered in community buildings. In terms of any proposals or projects for the fund, they need to align with one or more of the objectives. So we have improved the physical condition of the community building, to increase the energy efficiency and reduce the maintenance costs of the community buildings, increase accessibility of community buildings, or increase usage of community buildings. In terms of your project or proposal, so it's really important that it aligns with at least one or more of those objectives. So it can be one, it can be two, it can be three. It all depends on what the need is, what the works you plan to do are, and what the community benefit are. So for example, if you had a community building and there was a need to repair a roof, but also around installing double glazing, so then your project could be aligned to improving the physical condition, but also increasing the energy efficiency. So summarize that, the key thing is to make sure it aligns with one or more of those objectives. Okay, I will now pass over to Stephen from Cooperation Ireland, who will take us through the eligibility criteria. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Christopher, and you're very welcome to tonight's information session. I'll take you through details in terms of the eligibility criteria, how to submit an application. I work for Cooperation Ireland, and Cooperation Ireland is working alongside the Department for Communities in administrating the Northern Ireland Community Infrastructure Fund end to end. So I'll take you through the details of that. Okay, so in terms of who can apply, the organisations that apply must be a not-for-profit voluntary and community organisation with a recognised legal and constituted status and must be governed by a constitution or a set of rules. So you'll see this as in the eligibility screening and expression of interest form, and you'll be asked to evidence your status by providing a copy of, for example, your constitution or your memorandum and articles of association or trust deed. And these should be signed and dated as adopted by the chair or another senior office holder on behalf of your board. Your group or organisation should have a committee, a board with at least 3 members, 2 of whom are unrelated, a bank or credit union account in the name of the organisation that is applying for funding, and at least one set of annual accounts. You will be asked not at expression of interest stage, but at application stage, They will be asked for specific organisational policies, and these are referenced in the guideline document. The organisations can only make one application to the fund, and the organisation that is applying must commit to funding at least 5% of the total eligible cost of a project. Then, in terms of the buildings which can be funded, the community buildings will be community halls, community centres, or other facilities such as community hubs that are used by and accessible to the wider community for social, educational, or recreational purposes. Single purpose organisations, a community building may be owned or operated by a single purpose organisation. However, the applicant should be able to demonstrate that the building is accessible and used by the wider community. So an example there of a facility classified as an other facility is a community building maybe that's operated by a sporting organisation, where the building is actually also available as a community venue for non-sporting activities. In terms of the eligibility for the fund and the eligible community buildings, the community building must be located in Northern Ireland, at least 20 years old before the 1st of October 2025. And in terms of ownership, the building may have different forms of ownership. So it may be owned freehold, it may be held in trust, or it may be held leasehold. If a building is leased or rented, you should have 10 years remaining on your lease, and all applicants must be able to provide a written agreement with the owner or trustees of a building that they rent or lease, that they are agreeable to the works that will be funded. Each building must be operated by the applicant organisation, so it may not necessarily be owned by the applicant organisation, but it may be rented or leased and operated by the committee or the organisation that's applying to the fund. In terms of insurance and insurability, you aren't asked the evidence insurance or insurability at the expression of interest stage, but if you proceed to submit a full application, you will be asked if the building has buildings insurance, public liability insurance in place, and this would be a condition that would be set out in any letter of offer. This gives a sense of what buildings cannot be funded. So community buildings that are owned by local councils or statutory bodies. Voluntary organisations sometimes have office buildings which are used primarily for the administration or the running of the community organisation. The buildings that are then used exclusively for worship or for sports or sporting activities are not eligible, and temporary buildings or mobiles are not eligible. The funding available through the fund will be up to 95% of the total eligible project costs. The minimum grant that you can apply for will be 9,500, and the maximum grant will be 40,000. The total cost of a project can be between 10,000 and 50,000, and that 50,000 is the upper ceiling in terms of the total cost of the project. The maximum amount of grant funding would be up to 40,000, but a project in terms of its total cost could be up to 50,000. All applicants will be asked to make a monetary contribution, and that will be at least 5% of the total eligible cost of their project. And this could be funded through reserves, loans, or funds raised. In terms of that contribution, the minimum 5%, the contribution can't be made up of other grant funding, and it can't be funded in kind. For all approved projects, the costs, and this is important in terms of forward planning a project, the costs and the project must be capable of being delivered within a 1 year time frame between the 1st of April 2026 and the 31st of March 2027. It gives a good sense of the types of eligible projects and costs, and it might be useful to help you to consider how the fund could benefit your community building. So costs which are eligible And projects which are eligible would be the costs associated with the building, repair, and refurbishment works. That could be refurbishment works, structural repairs, roof work, flooring, electrical or plumbing works. It could also be small scale refurbishments or renovations to improve communal or areas that are in shared use, for example, kitchens, toilets. It could be structural changes to the internal layout of a building and changes that would enable a community building to be brought into multiple uses. The costs associated with buying, installing, or replacing equipment that is an integrated part of the building uh, is eligible, and that includes kitchen units, worktops, sinks, bathroom fittings, oven or kitchen appliances. Painting or decorating is eligible where that work is directly linked to the overall refurbishment project. And something to note in terms of planning a project is that you could include within the design of a project that would fit with a fund, you could include a combination of works. This also gives a sense of some of the additional work that is also eligible, and that includes costs associated with improving the energy efficiency of a community building. That might include boiler replacement, insulation, perhaps the upgrading of windows, upgrades to heating systems, where you can show that this will increase the energy efficiency of the community building, the installation of solar panels, also improvements to facilities that are necessary to meet health and safety or building regulations. And that could be work to wiring, sockets, electrical switches, distribution boards, heating systems, and appliances. What is also eligible are the costs associated with improving the accessibility to a community building. And this could be the installation of ramps or lifts. It could be the installation of hearing loop systems, door handles, grab rails, anything that improves the accessibility to the existing community building. Labour costs are eligible, as are professional fees. So, professional fees such as quantity surveyors, architects, building control fees, and other specialists. These costs can be up to a maximum of 12.5% of the total eligible project costs, and this is for professional fees that are incurred during and as part of the delivery of the project itself. We included within the presentation details of ineligible projects and costs, and the reason that we did that is to give you a guide that if you're preparing an expression of interest to the programme or you're forward planning a potential application to the programme, this gives you a good sense of those costs that you wouldn't include within your project design or proposal. And that includes any routine maintenance as part of the day-to-day upkeep of a building. A community building isn't eligible. That, for example, could be gutter cleaning, ground maintenance work, boiler servicing work. The construction of new buildings is not eligible. The extensions to existing buildings is not eligible. Any works to temporary buildings or mobiles isn't eligible. Works to sporting infrastructure, including changing rooms or pitches, is not eligible. And the fund is not intended to make up any shortfalls in funding for a major refurbishment or renovation project that is ongoing. Uh, the fund won't fund any projects that have already started. And buying general equipment, for example, tables and chairs that aren't integrated into the fabric of the community building, is not eligible. Uh, Work to car parks, external play areas, or landscaping are also works and costs that are not considered eligible. This list gives you a good sense of ineligible costs, and you wouldn't include any of these costs in your project design or your cost estimates. And that's costs relating to staff or employees, costs relating to rental rates, the running costs of your building, such as energy bills, feasibility studies, and any professional fees, that's such as planning application, building control fees that are incurred before any letter of offer would issue. Works that don't comply with relevant planning, building control, list and building consent, or other relevant statutory regulations um, aren't eligible in terms of costs. Any costs not directly related to the project, costs that would be incurred before any letter of offer would issue to an applicant. The purchase of land or buildings, VAT, where the applicants are registered for and can reclaim the VAT, and charges including bank interest, legal dispute costs, depreciation, in-kind contributions. You'll see this listed as a great reference list if you are planning a project in terms of preparing costs, preparing estimates. You wouldn't include any of these costs in your proposal. I'll go through now the details of how to apply. And to apply, you register via an online application portal. All applications are completed online. To apply, you can register on the Northern Ireland Community Infrastructure Fund portal. It's accessible on the Cooperation Ireland website. The link is cooperationireland.org/NICIF. To register, you'll need a valid email address, and only one user should register on behalf of your organization or project. So if you go to the homepage of cooperationireland.org, you'll see an article on the homepage about the Northern Ireland Community Infrastructure Fund, and that will take you to the registration portal and link. The portal will open for applications on the 1st of October, and it's open until the 29th of October 2025, the 2025 at 23:29. So it's open for expressions of interest until 23:59 on the 29th of October. If you have any difficulty with registering on the portal, support is available on the registration page, or support is available by emailing nicif@cooperationireland.org. And support is also available by phoning Cooperation Ireland on 02890 321 462, and I'll show these details on the next series of slides. The application process itself involves two stages. The first stage involves an initial automated eligibility screening process, which you must pass. This is a series of questions, and the eligibility screening process is automated. That leads you to an expression of interest form, and the application then the groups or organisations that submit an expression of interest. The details will be checked, and those groups that meet the eligibility criteria will be invited to stage 2 of the process, which will be the full application. The eligibility screening, to give you a guide to that, it's a series of questions. Its purpose really is to ensure that the fund is right for your community group, organisation or project. Please read and respond to these questions carefully. Each applicant or project will only be able to submit the answer to these questions once. So it's a pass-fail. Then in terms of the expression of interest itself, applicants or projects that successfully pass the eligibility screening, that series of questions, it will be able to fill in the expression of interest form, and you can actually save and return to complete the expression of interest form at any time between now and the 29th of October. So in terms of submitting the form, you can only submit one expression of interest per applicant or project. And to progress the full application, you need to have submitted an expression of interest form. And the purpose of the form really is to prevent maybe applicants or projects that aren't eligible, to prevent you from committing your time, effort, and resources to developing a full application at stage 2 if you won't qualify for the fund. You will not be able to submit EOIs after the closing date of the 29th of October. And before filling out the form, our advice would be to read the guidance notes. There's an excellent set of guidance notes. It's a short series of pages that give you the full details of the scheme, and it's worth reading that before you begin filling in the expression of interest form. Do read and complete all sections of the expression of interest form. You will be asked to upload required documentation, um, and I'll go through a list of those documents on the next series of slides. Ensure that the files, the uploads are readable and they're legible, and only submit one expression of interest form. You can, as I said, include multiple components of the eligible project costs. You can include multiple components in the design. What the expression of interest form then will ask you for is details about your organization, the legal name of the applicant organization, the organization type, if you're a charity, a company, your VAT registration number, and your organization's primary purpose. You'll be asked to upload the supporting documents, and I'll go through those in a little second. You'll be asked then for details about your community building, and these are basic details such as it's the building name, number, street, town, the county postcode, and the council area. You'll be asked if you're in an urban or a rural area. And in relation to your building, you'll be asked the type of tenure that you hold. If you own the building freehold, if it's held in trust, if it's held leasehold, if it's leased or rented. You will also be asked the year of construction, and the building must be at least 20 years old as of the 1st of October 2025 to qualify for the scheme. You'll need to upload your title documents, and you'll be asked for these, and that could be the title deeds, land registry records, lease or rental agreement, to demonstrate that you have security of tenure for the buildings. And for buildings that are held in trust, you'll be asked for details of the office bearers. Um, in terms of when your lease expires, you should have 10 years remaining on any lease if you lease the building and you own and operate it on a leased basis. To be eligible for funding, your building must be available to and for use by the wider community, and you'll be asked to provide evidence of that. You'll be asked to explain how your building is made available for wider community use and to upload evidence of that. Then in terms of the details about your project, what the form, the expression of interest form, asks you for is a brief description of your project, the type of works, the eligible works that you wish to undertake, the estimated total cost of the project, the estimated grant that you're applying for, and you will be asked to provide details of planning if planning is required as part of your project. One thing that we would guide you is that it's each applicant's responsibility to ensure that if your project requires planning, building control, list of building, or other statutory consents, if they're needed in order to proceed with the project, it's each applicant's responsibility to be able to demonstrate that those consents have been attained. This slide is a good list, a checklist of the documents that you will be asked to upload alongside your application. And what you will find with the expression of interest form, the details that you are asked for aren't extensive in terms of the description of the project or the detail at the expression of interest stage, but it's handy to have a list of the documents that are required such that you can collate them and complete the eligibility screening and the expression of interest form in one go. So the documents that are required are a copy of a constitution or memorandum, articles of association or trust deed, and these should be dated and signed as adopted by your chair or other office holders on behalf of your board. You'll be asked for a list of the current office bearers or committee members of your organisation, and again, that list you would sign and date. You'll be asked for details of a bank or credit union statement with the account in the name of the applicant, group or organisation, your most recent annual accounts or financial statements, a copy of any title documents or evidence of security of tenure, such as lease agreements for a period of 10 years, and then details of planning if planning is required. Then the evidence that your building is available for wider community use. One question that does arise is, how do I evidence wider community use? There are a couple of ways in which you could do that. You may have existing clauses in your constitution or government document um, that state that your building is currently available for wider community use. May have hire or booking policies or terms of use for your community building. You may have existing booking records that shows wider usage by the community. You may have a log of who uses or has used your building over the course of the last number of months, and that would provide evidence at your building who uses the building and which groups, organisations. So after the expression of interest is submitted, the expression of interest and supporting documents will be checked through, and any expression of interest that are incomplete or don't have any required documents attached won't be progressed, but those groups or organisations that meet the eligibility criteria for the fund and have uploaded the required documentation will be invited to full application, and uh, you'll be notified of the outcome of the expression of interest process, all applicants by the 19th of November. So applicants must have demonstrated that they meet the criteria of the fund for the fund to be invited to stage 2 full application. The full application will also be completed online via the application portal. And please note just that an invitation to submit a full application of itself isn't final confirmation of scheme eligibility. The full eligibility will be tested as part of the application process. The Northern Ireland Community Infrastructure Fund is a competitive discretionary grant fund and can't guarantee that every potentially fundable application will be funded. What happens next after you've submitted the expression of interest form is that you'll be notified of the outcome by the 19th of November. The fund, in terms of support to applicants, there's guidance available for applicants from Cooperation Ireland, and we have a help desk that's available to applicants. You can contact the help desk via NICIF at cooperationireland.org. You can contact the helpline on 02890 321 462, and you'll receive a link to apply on the application portal if successful. There are guidelines available, and the published guidelines for the scheme are available for download from the Department for Communities website. There's also a link on the Cooperation Ireland website, and the address there is communitiesni.gov.uk/NICIF. We're also publishing from across the information events. There has been a series of questions that have been asked. There's been a series of frequently asked questions, and the details of these will be published on the Cooperation Ireland website for all applicants.